And we are live. Welcome into the Fieldhouse Files live post-game show. I do one of these after every single Pacers playoff game. Well, this was not a good performance, not a memorable one, as Pacer fans not treated to a good game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse here on a Friday night. As you go into a weekend where you have two Pacer games, you thought maybe they'd have a chance after celebrating Mother's Day coming up on Sunday for the Pacers to close it out and even think ahead to the conference finals. Not so fast, my friend, is what Lee Corso always said, and that's what the Cavs said. And it was just so critical for them to get their stars back, right? To get two of their three All-Stars back, and you already had one playing. So it's Darius Garland back, Evan Mobley, Defensive Player of the Year, back, DeAndre Hunter, not nearly as significant, but he played a key role here in this one, obviously. 8 points, 5 rebounds, a little bit of everything in 20 minutes. And it's not like you need major minutes from them, but if they can give you 15 to 20, 25 minutes per game, this is a much different Cavaliers team. That's what I tried to caution Pacer fans. So many had already been looking ahead to the conference finals. So many thought, could it be a sweep? No, this is a very good Cavs team. You knew they weren't going to let roll over. You knew some of the injured players were going to try to play through something. You could just see throughout Darius Garland clearly battling pain. It was visible with his face and gestures and such. I'm guessing he took a pain pill or shot up or something before the game to be able to play in this one, because I'm not sure how else you do it with the pain threshold that it probably requires otherwise. I'm Scott Agness of Fieldhouse Files, fieldhousefiles.com, and the podcast. Hope you listened to today's show earlier today as I posted my one-on-one interview with Ryan Ruocco, who you heard call the game tonight on ESPN. Game 4 coming up Sunday. We now know the start time to Game 5. It is Tuesday. It is in Cleveland. It'll be 7 o'clock Eastern time on TNT. I'll be taking your comments and questions throughout this post game here in the live chat. And if you miss anything, I'll post it back on the Fieldhouse Files podcast. Where to begin with this one? Maybe just at the start where you knew the Cavaliers were going to come out with the first punch in a big punch, right? Started 11-0. Played very well, and yet, despite a crummy first quarter, the Pacers were still in it, all even at 32 after one. Really, outside of Myles Turner, there's not many compliments to go around from a Pacers standpoint. They started, I think, 0-7 as a team. Finally, Myles Turner made their first basket with 6:43 to go in the quarter after a couple timeouts had to be used. It was also after TJ McConnell had checked in to give them a burst of energy there off the bench. But Myles had their first 10 points. I'm looking at my notes here as the Pacers fell behind 25-10. Unacceptable from everyone outside of Myles Turner because he was doing it with block shots and rebounding. To me, this one comes down. How often do we hear Rick Carlisle use the cliches, right? It's about hard play. It's about force. I don't think we saw much of that at all in this one. That's why the adjustments, it's the hard play adjustment that you want to see coming up in Game 4 to make it more competitive, because none of us want to watch a playoff game where one team has the lead throughout, and it's just not very dominant. The fact that the closest it got late was when the Pacers charged forward, saw Pascal Siakam scored 9 of their first 14 points there in the fourth quarter. They got to within 11 points, but then what? Then it was all she wrote with the Cavs is Donovan Mitchell, who finished with another 43 points for Donovan Mitchell in this one. But we saw him score 8 in a row, and it was all part of 16-1 Cavs run to get it done. All right, let's go to some of the comments here before I get back to kind of my thoughts and recap of what's going on. Indy Joe in Orlando says, giving up second chance points haunted the Pacers for 30 years. Yeah, I think I've talked about rebounding differential and needing the extra effort and the rebounds for my entire time on the Pacers beat, which extends back to 2012. So it's been quite a while, and it's a reoccurring theme. It was a night where maybe you missed having a true backup center in this one. Myles was solid, but you really needed a more physical guy that could really battle, piss people off, move guys around, not allow the Cavs to finish so comfortably in the lane. I mean, if I'm the Pacers, I'm showing that fourth quarter where Mitchell was just walking his way through the lane. They would foul him, and half the time he was just going to the line, and the other half he had made the basket, and it was an and one opportunity. It definitely stood out to me with 5 minutes left when Rick Carlisle did not wave the white towel. No, that's not what he was doing. He sent James Johnson in the game to try to change things a little bit. And right away, his first thing he did was not just give a screen, but a kind of like he was in football, a blocking screen there in that fourth quarter, and was called for the offensive foul because of the screen there. But there's just not a ton to like from this game, right? Like it just was unacceptable on so many fronts, I thought. Starting with the energy, the effort. I mean, it's repetitive. The discipline. They were not disciplined in this. How about the technical fouls in the third quarter that piled up? Now, for one, Rick Carlisle definitely deserved his. The other ones I'm not calling. I'm not, right? Like Thomas Bryant's walking to the bench, unless he said the magic word or something, which I'm not sure Thomas has it in him. I'm sure he was just mumbling under his breath, his frustration, or he was talking to someone on the bench, like, can't catch a break with these officials or whatever. You let that stuff go, especially players out. He's on the bench. He's going to have frustrations. That's in large part why, if you're a coach, you take a player out of the game. Then you had that sequence where Matherin, who is, I don't know if you guys see it as well, but it feels like Matherin not only is chirping more, but he wants that discourse. He wants to talk and wants to talk shit constantly to the guys out on the floor, whether it's a hard foul, whether it's a guy can't guard him. I think that's a competitiveness, and 90% of it I like. I do. Sometimes it's uncalled for. Maybe tonight was one of them, when you're down by 15 and you just need to compete and get some points and spend your emotions and your physical energy on mustering a comeback. Because that was a tough one. But yeah, the second chance opportunities, man. 31 points, 18 offensive rebounds. For context, the Pacers, just four. Just four offensive rebounds for the Pacers, who had 37 total rebounds compared to 56 for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's where the game was lost, but it also is contributing to the more general theme of getting outworked. It's the Pacers were seemingly beaten to all the 50-50 balls. They were beaten to all the hustle plays and the extra effort situations, and we're not used to that. We're not. That's usually the department, right, guys, where you can count on the Pacers of winning that category. They may not shoot as well as the other team. They'll probably get out rebounded, but they're not going to have as many turnovers. And tonight was a game they had that a little bit more under control, right? They had one fewer turnover, and they shot 1% better than the Cavs. But did you see the field goal attempts? 100 for the Cavs in this one. And remember, the game was basically over with 6 minutes left, but they had 100, 20 more than the Pacers did with 80, and they were 35 of 80. 44% can win you games, just 30% from three, minus 15 from three-point range. So not a lot of categories went the Pacers' way. Welcome, Sean. He says, embarrassing performance, but no need to panic. With game 4, you've done your job. Head back up 3-1 and give yourself a great chance to win. Got to figure out how to get Ty going. Completely agree with that sentiment, Sean. Well, that's level-headed right there. So I appreciate that. You're exactly right. The only issue I have with this game is that you didn't really compete. It wasn't that you lost again, but all those different runs you gave up to the Cavaliers, that you were unable to muster up stops, that you were beaten on those 50-50 balls. That's what I have a trouble with. But you're right. You can throw all that out and come to game 4. You capture that win, wipe your hands clean of this game, and then you did what you needed to do. And then you have 3 chances to win one game. And I think especially the Pacers would like their odds, considering the health of the Cavs. You knew the Cavs were going to get this one. I thought the minute they officially upgraded those players to available, and 2 of them obviously being in the starting lineup. But I do think it's a little finicky or fun with the injury report when you can go from questionable to game time decision to available for all 3 of them. Feels like they were more probable and ultimately then did play. That's the only reason it matters, is for all those gamblers out there. When you take that money from the gamblers, you got to be able to give more accurate injury updates, I feel. And it's something I'm tracking with all these different teams, not just the ones I cover. BJ says, driving home from Evansville, disappointed on that effort. Yeah, for good reason. I do not blame you. This was not a aesthetically pleasing game at all. I'm not sure it's one you really want to watch back. whether you're a Pacers fan or just a basketball fan. It wasn't very good. Maybe you'd go back and watch the Donovan Mitchell highlights. He was really good. Got to give him credit where credit's due. He's been the best player in this series. He has, I think, 33 points in game one, 48 last game, and then tonight, 43 points in 37 minutes, 9 rebounds to go along with that, and basically got whatever he wanted. And again, he was critical to that fourth quarter where he scored 8 points in a row. He stymied a Pacers run. We saw Siakam go off, TJ McConnell come in, get the crowd going, try to energize the crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. By the way, why do they bully fans into putting on their T-shirts? If you want to put on your T-shirt, great. You pay $200, you wear whatever the hell you want. That's how I look at it. But I was watching that pregame, and I was like, it's a little uncomfortable to see personally. Quimono says, what's happening to Mr. Big Balls today? He totally went missing. By the way, I don't know if you saw it, but I reported today at fieldhousefiles.com that no fine for Tyrese Haliburton. I'm a little bit surprised by that. Just a warning. I think it's probably just a moment that the NBA loves. They wanted to capitalize on the situation, and Ty hasn't really done anything like this before. No fine for a gesture, so they can understand you getting caught up in the moment. But given that he was like, hey, I'll happily take the fine, and given that it's almost a default fine to when you do the big ball celebration, as we mostly know as Sam Cassell celebration, it's about $15,000. But good on the NBA for letting him keep his money, because that was the biggest shot of his life, right? In the playoffs, to knock that one down. That was important. That was impressive. And so, but I just strayed away from the comment. You're right. Where was he? A little bit of that was acceptable to an extent, right? Having covered Caitlin Clark now as well, it's like they treated him like her. Max Strus picking him up 94 feet, basically wrapping him up and being physical and in his face the entire length of the floor. And it makes sense, right? I don't know why more teams don't do that, especially if you have depth and you're able to do that, right? Because why is this team special? It's built around Haliburton. He thrives because the players around him are built for this system. You put the ball in his hands, he's going to put it in the right spot. He's going to get his points generally, but for him to just not be really a non-factor in this game is not good enough. It's not good enough for a guy that's on a above max contract. I do understand, right, and him not going off for 30 whatsoever. But elite players show up in elite games like this, and you force them to change their defense. And I do wonder how much of the players kind of followed his lead there early on, and it just wasn't impactful. And so that's something, you're right, you do need to see more of from Tyrese. When you're the face of the franchise, the highest paid player in franchise history, you need him to step up. And in the first half, I thought Siakam needed to as well. That's exactly what they are paying for him. And he has not been a great, hadn't put up big numbers in this series, but was better tonight, finishing with 18 points. I think he had like 10 there at least 10 in the fourth quarter, but too late by that point. Pacers never led in this one. For a playoff game, that's wildly surprising, as the Pacers unable to get it done tonight. 126 to 104 was not even close. They trailed outside after the first quarter. They basically trailed by double digits the rest of the way. And I know we've seen that before, but it is so taxing to have to make these comebacks. That's why they're so improbable. They did it just last game, had 2 days between games, in a practice, 1 day of practice as well, after taking 2 days off, 3 days between games. But that's just asking a lot for this team. But they do need to demand more from everyone on this roster. But as always, it starts with Haliburton for sure. Myles and Mathurin did okay. Yeah, I would agree. I thought Myles was critical there in the first quarter, where he scored their first 10 points. And despite them trailing by 15 early, he kind of kept them in the game. He ultimately finished with 15 points, 3 rebounds. So you still needed more from him. I'm curious how he's feeling post games, because it was alarming there when he went down with that ankle injury. He clutched his right ankle. And here's the frustration for me, right? You do these in-game interviews and you don't ask Myles about his ankle. We don't care about the team's mindset going into the fourth quarter. They're not going to offer you any thoughts. I thought that was a big whiff by the broadcast to ask him a couple questions. I think it was going into the fourth quarter. And you don't ask the biggest question, I think, on fans' minds who are at home is, Myles, how are you feeling? What exactly happened on that play. So we'll get answers from Myles in the next couple of days leading into Game 4 coming up on Sunday. And then Matherin obviously had the best game of his postseason career, was unavailable during the postseason last year. It was better last game after a tough last series, and showed exactly why so many think maybe he should be in the starting lineup eventually, like next year, because of that big game potential, his competitiveness, his ability to get to the free throw line. I mean, the Pacers tonight, 25 of 34. The player who visited most was Matherin, who was 8 for 9. It seemed like they did not have any heart, says David. Matthew, Mitchell is going to get us. Watching seemed like lack of aggression from the Pacers. That was exactly it. All those effort plays, all those effort questions, those were the concerning thing. That's where you don't want to lose games. You're good with missing shots. You're good with making the right pass, but getting intercepted and things like that. When it comes down to getting beat to loose balls, to getting beat on the glass as badly as they did, nah, man, that's not good. I'm having a long film session coming up on Saturday. Siakam, very underwhelming, says Kimono. I hope I'm saying that right. Woke up a bit in the fourth quarter, but it was too late. Yeah, for sure. But that was the entire team, I feel like, tonight. At least he woke up, right? Matthew said, I have not seen a team not be able to beat a zone since the Hoosiers, since Syracuse. Oh, my goodness. That takes me back. That's what, 2014? I'll never forget it. I think it was in D.C., where they just couldn't figure it out. Now, Kenny Atkinson, just heard him talking post-game, and they obviously switched to that 3-2 zone rather than a 2-3, and that was done after they reviewed film over the last several games. We talk about teams making adjustments in the postseason, and this is the perfect example here, right? They saw on film that 2-3 is just not that effective. It gives the Pacers some fits. But by switching to a 3-2 zone, they felt more comfortable to match up the way in which the Pacers offense operates in their 5-out scheme. And that obviously was very successful. I'll be very curious once this is done to go on and say about how the Pacers did against the zone. I think we already kind of know, but specifically how they looked. TJ McConnell did okay as well. Yeah, a few players had their moments for sure, but there's no one really that spectacular or that great to highlight, I don't think, in this one, other than Myles Turner's start, which kept them afloat there early on when you know the game's not going to get away and you know the Cavs are going to get off to a fast start. You just knew, especially with those players back. But it was just brutal. And then you're climbing uphill the rest of the game, and then they got burnt out. The officiating was a little rough, especially when it comes to the emotions of the game and those sorts of things, and that just made it tough. Got to punch first on Sunday. Yeah, I would agree with that. 100% right. Donovan Mitchell seemed to be figuring out a way to break down the Pacers' defense. Yeah, by attacking it, get to the teeth of the defense, and cutting inside. No question. Yeah, he was so successful there, getting to the paint, getting whatever they wanted, and they obviously led the paint statistics. Wasn't by a wide margin like it was last game, but obviously had success there and would have kept going, except he was subbed out of the game and the clock finished off the game, right? PJ said, Scott, they bullied us on the big screen to put on the shirts pregame. Yeah, I know. I don't like it. Not a fan of that. I think it's cool they give away shirts, not towels. Do not do towels. Nobody needs a towel anymore. But, I mean, I watched some of that, and some of the individuals do not wear XL. Some are much smaller than XL, and some are much bigger than XL. I don't like the peer pressure. But I know there is a cool factor, right, of having everybody do it, and then it looks good for the national TV broadcast, so I can understand it. But I'm also like, hey, man, if you paid what you paid for a ticket, you get to wear whatever the heck you want as long as it's reasonable. Justin mixed in our fever question, of course. Will Caitlin Clark play tomorrow? I think so, just based on what she said today. She's not on the injury report with that left leg tightness. Damiris Dantas will not play. A new injury popped up. Lower leg is what they said. That doesn't really help. We got to work on those and get better clarification, because those aren't real injury reports that help. And I think the ambiguity is not helpful for fans in particular that then have more questions based on it. But I would guess Caitlin Clark plays. I think probably limited minutes, looking at 15, 17 minutes at most, maybe with that starting group, allow them to get a little bit more game rhythm and time and experience playing together. But then you want to balance in the back of the bench. Remember, they need to waive at least one player. Really will waive one player. I believe it's between Jaylen Brown, the guard that they acquired, and the one rookie that remains on the roster, and Michaela Timpson. We'll get into Fever a lot more in the coming weeks, though, but I appreciate the question. Feels like somebody needs to body Strus, need to give him that physicality back to him. Did you see the end of the game? Did you see James Johnson check in with 5 minutes left? And it was not the entire line change. No, it was just James checking in. I think that's in large part what they were trying to do. And I don't blame them. We heard so much from Kenny Atkinson, too much, in my opinion. I don't mind some of that gamesmanship, trying to work the officials maybe one time before a game, right? We as I've talked about before, we saw that with Pat Riley. We saw that with Frank Vogel. We saw that with Nate McMillan. We saw that with Rick Carlisle in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But enough. Like, let that message go. At some point, the players have to just handle it. I don't like all the foul calls. I thought it killed the game rhythm. It killed the game vibe. I thought the technicals ruined any kind of momentum and vibe that the game had there in the third quarter, which it really allowed for it to just drag on. That was the one quarter the Pacers won. They were +3, 34-31. But it was just such a disruptive quarter as well. What else do we got? A lot of comments on this. Appreciate everyone jumping on and joining me. I know it's late, certainly here in Indianapolis or wherever you may be. Mr. Compton says, why is Siakam struggling right now? I think it comes down to a couple factors. One, he has not been nearly assertive enough. I know a couple months ago he was going through something off the court that he was really struggling with and is weighing him down a little bit. I'm not sure where that stands right now, but I think this is a matter of you got to remember he's adapting his playing style. He's not ideally in a perfect world. I don't think he plays in that super fast up and down pace and space type system. He's much more methodical about what he does. He wants to go to the low post. He wants to go to the mid range. He wants to attack, get to the basket. So I think he needs to be assertive enough. And then on top of that, it's also on the guards. It's also on Haliburton, Nembhard, whoever's handling the ball to make sure he gets passes, right? We heard on I think it was post-game press conference after game one. It was awkward, but Tyrese Haliburton was asked about kind of if you're, as the point guard of a team, are you like the mom because you're trying to make everybody happy? Very weird question, I know. He was like, yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're in that role, you got to make guys happy. And players long before him have talked about, like, if a guy needs to get going, you got to force feed him. Give him that confidence. Get him going. We see that with Myles a lot. When they need an engaged Myles and such, what do we see first? Maybe the first play call for him. Maybe a couple offensive sets that allow for him to score. Then he's great defensively, and it spills over to the offensive end. I think it simply comes down to him needing to be more assertive. Maybe the coaching staff calling a couple plays for him, and then certainly his teammates making him demand it as well a little bit. But I don't think it's anything like an injury or mental challenges or, anything like that. No. What else do we got? Haliburton needs to slow the star team leader talk until he can come out and lead the team in big games like this. A no-show tonight is unacceptable. Absolutely, for sure. I think where he's been good many times is when he doesn't have a good game, he's still able to close strong. So like the other night, if I remember right, he wasn't all that spectacular in game two, but then he finished strong. Played very well over the final 5 minutes, obviously hit the big three. That was the game winner. But you know what else we talked about so much, especially me, after that game? It was the hard play. It was Aaron Nesmith going for the putback slam and getting fouled. It was Nesmith drawing the offensive foul. You know whose name I didn't call tonight was Nesmith. That one struck me a little odd, right? But also, all those hustle plays we talked about, there weren't many of those tonight, unfortunately. And that, in large part, more than anything, is why the Pacers were unable to take a 3-0 lead in the series. It's 2-1. Now as game 4 is on Sunday. But Haliburton over his career, especially in the postseason, the main thing I've noticed is just consistency. He'll go from a 35-point game to a 12-point game. Some of that is, yes, the defense, and they're scheming him out and trying to make anyone else beat you. But also there's those games, right, that he's had where he only gets 8 shots off and 10 shots off. And, he's 1 for 4 from 3, so he stops taking it. Or there was that game last series, I want to say it was like game 2, where he, what was it? He had 9 shot attempts, I want to say, and 8 of them were from outside the arc. He had stopped shooting from inside the paint. And then the next game, he attacked and the points piled up. That's what I want to see more from him. And then that gets him going as well. And then maybe if they scheme him out even more, somebody else can get the hot hand as well. Turner can't give ankle status to a reporter during the game. The other team can use it as competitive advantage. No. What are you going to say? Yeah, my ankle hurts, but I'm going to play. No, that's not it at all. You can say, what he's not going to, there's nothing that's a competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is like, I'm not playing in the fourth quarter, or I will be playing in the fourth quarter. But you can allude a little bit to how you feel emotionally, or it hurts, but I'm going to keep playing through it. Things like that. You can definitely answer. MK Sinks, welcome. I think you've made every one of these post games, so I appreciate that. I just expected more all-around performance, he said, at home, and with a bit more chip on the shoulder, up 2-0. Now they gave the Cavs some life. Yeah, I agree, for sure. And that's the challenge with all this. Why didn't the Pacers prepare for this 3-2 zone? I haven't been able to ask them that question, but the assumption here is they didn't expect it. They were planning against a 2-3 zone that, like most teams do. You do expect these pro basketball players to be able to adapt and read. So much of this is read and react, but for specific schemes, for specific ways to beat it, you're going to have a better success rate when you have more time in practice to go over the film and go over it specifically in practice. I would guess that going into this playoffs, they've worked briefly against a 2-3 zone, briefly against a 3-2, because they've seen all of it before. Just that 3-2, not nearly as much, so they don't have a ton to deal with. MK, what's wrong? What's with the broadcast? At one point, they were insinuating how fans were drunk to question a foul call. Just have not been balanced commentary in any of the 3 games so far. I haven't felt that or observed that quite so much. I thought tonight's broadcast, you could tell maybe some of them haven't followed the Pacers as much, and you see that with national broadcasts. That's why I do laugh sometimes when fans clamor for wanting national broadcasts, because then sometimes you get to this point. I think Mr. Compton here is making that point. The broadcast hinted that James Johnson might be there in the rotation more. Or should have been in the rotation more, is I think the point they were trying to get across, and that's where I was confused. I think James Johnson was out there to make a point, to play hard. You knew he was going to play hard, and he did. He went up, made a couple layups. I think he got fouled, got a couple rebounds, set a couple hard screens. But if the Pacers are leaning on James Johnson, who is on the team for coaching, leadership, support, physically and emotionally, they're in big trouble. But yeah, some of the national broadcasts, I think some of the points were missed. I thought Ryan Ruocco did a phenomenal job. I think he's well prepared, well versed. And I asked him if you should go listen on the Fieldhouse Files podcast. They spend about 15, 20 minutes before each game with the head coaches, both of them. So they get some notes, they get some feedback, they get some stuff that can both inform their broadcast quietly and then other stuff explicitly that they can use for the broadcast. So that's something to watch. But no, I would not expect some of that in terms of like James Johnson having a significant role. No, I think that was just time and score and situation and wanting to play physical. You can tell the Pacers were not happy with the way the game was called. With all those technicals, Thomas Bryant, Rick Carlisle, just Carlisle's 6th technical, by the way, this season. Those are way down. Remember, it was like his first year here, he led the league, I think, in technical fouls, which he was joking. I think his wife wasn't happy with. And he also joked how, might cost Abby, his daughter, a semester at UVA because of it. Just 6 technicals now on the season for him. Nembhard, picking a battle that was unnecessary there. Also picking up a delay a game. The TV broadcast totally whiffed, by the way, on what Nembhard did. That was my other trouble with some of these broadcasts, is you can't lose sight of what's happening on the court. I do not need a cutaway to the fans. I don't want to replay when something emotional, something significant is happening out on the court. I want to use free time for that, not during the game, or not why something memorable is happening. That would be my biggest issue with all that. Almost like the Periscope days. You were around back then? Wow. I've only done a couple of those probably in the last couple of years. Obviously, Periscope's gone. I think Twitter does live video, and I need to find a way to send this also to Twitter so that it captures my largest audience there as well. So much of my followers here on YouTube in particular are from Fever. There's a worldwide appeal, global appeal about the Indiana Fever on here. Pacer fans not nearly as active here on YouTube. I see James Wiseman working again with the team. Do you think he'll be a Pacer next year? Well, he's rehabbing with the team right now. And I think that's very cool that the Pacers allow for some of their players to do that. The only reason he was waived was for business purposes, was to empty that roster spot, to get that back. And so they made that deal work with Toronto, but it's not like they wanted to shut him out or force him to move on or anything. They knew he was going to get waived. So like they've done before, notably with Edmund Sumner, who also tore his Achilles, they said, hey, you're welcome to use our facilities, and we provide you all that support. This happened on our watch. So I think that's admirable that the Pacers do that. Same thing with Isaiah Jackson, although he's still under the roster. I think they'll consider bringing him back. Here's the challenge, though. I think the priority is Isaiah Jackson. And if that's the case, do you really want two centers again on your roster who are coming off the same injury and probably won't be 100% for the first couple months of the season? So this is better talk for the off season, but that's what you have to consider there. The other thing is I think they need more of a physical presence as a backup center. So that's what I would probably look more towards for as that third string center. But we'll get into that there in the offseason. Isaiah Jackson was sitting behind the bench. Pacers got to get their head out of the sand and post up so they can play the Knicks, says David. They just got to play harder. They got to be themselves. The key going into this one, Kenny Atkinson was saying pregame, is with the players back, they want to find their identity and play to it. Well, I thought they did a great job of doing that, where the Pacers lacked in that area. They never really looked like they were playing that basketball that we had been watching for 82 games this season. They got taken out of their element. Haliburton was picked up full court. Nembhard finished with 10 points, 4 assists, 3 turnovers. And I didn't even mention 3 turnovers for Tyrese as well. The Pacers just had an off game. That's what it came down to. Just a frustrating one, especially for fans that I know poured out hundreds of dollars to go to the game, maybe even before the game for drinks and dinner and those sort of things. So it was definitely a disappointing performance overall. And for the millions watching at home, because this wasn't a tight game. Pacers never led in this one and trailed by as many as 26. You want a lot more competitive effort, especially in the postseason. You guys want to talk off season already, not just enjoying the postseason, huh? To keep Turner, the Pacers will either need the owner to pay the luxury tax or let someone go. And with Mathurin's extension coming up, things are getting tight. Cazzaro says, yeah, that's exactly it. My belief is Herb Simon is willing to go in the luxury tax for a team that can win a championship. To me, this roster is just a little short from being a championship contender in my mind. And yeah, they could trade or go into the luxury tax. In a perfect world, I think they would be just under the luxury tax one more season and then plan to go into the luxury tax another season or two. However, that's also wishful thinking. This team has not paid into the luxury tax for about 20 years. They have not been back to the finals since 2000. So if they believe the window is there, you have to pounce through it and plow your way through it. You can't say, hey, okay, well, maybe next year. Well, maybe next year one of your key players gets hurt or there's a contract holdout or a guy wants traded. You just don't know. So, yeah, they have to be interested and willing to consider that. And I think they will. But it doesn't mean they also won't consider other options. And I think Myles does want to be here, but the Pacers can't lowball him. That's the other thing. Really good article with him on Players Tribune. It's disappointing that he felt he had to go and do that story because no one else was writing it. I also don't know why Aaron Nesmith wasn't made available and talking over the last couple of days. He was the story to me of Game 2, and no media quotes from him, nothing whatsoever. So that was disappointing because I wanted him to get his due. He's a guy on a value contract that many people have said should come off the bench, maybe shouldn't be a starter, is just a role player, and he plays his ass off and deserves that shine that allowed for them to get back in the game and allowed for them to get that Turner tip and allowed for the game-winning three-pointer from Tyrese Haliburton. A hypothetical question here. If Aaron Nesmith was a first option on a team, would he be an all-star? A first option? He's not a first option. So absolutely not. He's a solid defender, a good role player, knows his role, stars in his role, and has been really good there. But I don't believe the Pacers are like holding him back here, if that's kind of your point. Welcome, Big Larry. He says Haliburton has to get the ball more. His usage rate was number 2 this year behind Jokic. Strus shut him down 95 of the last 96 minutes. I need to fact check that usage rate because I don't think that's correct. His usage rate you're saying is number 2 this year behind Jokic. I don't believe that's at all true. I'm not sure he was number 1 on this Pacers team because last I had checked going into the playoffs, I think his number dropped from like 24 this season last year to 21 this year. They had more balance. And that's what you want with him. This was a game that was both concerning, complexing because you saw Max Strus the way he was able to guard and picked him up full court and tried to wear him out, tried to take the ball out of his hand. And then on top of that, like with Siakam, I was talking about minutes before this, you want your star player in Haliburton to go get it and try to make the most of it. You want to go down swinging with your best players, and that was not the case tonight. And Tyrese, in a couple years of postseason action, this was his worst performance from a statistical standpoint, finishing with just 4 points, 5 assists, 3 turnovers in 30 minutes. So I expect him to come back with a impressive return. Coming up Sunday, I think he'll play some determined basketball and come back with a much better focused effort. Does tonight's performance make the view on Sunday's game better, or are the Pacers nervous after tonight? Or are the Pacers right where they need to be after tonight? I think is what you're saying. I think to me, Sunday's game is what it always was. The difference is you thought you might have a chance to close it out. I don't think you're any more nervous if you're a Pacers player or a fan for Sunday's game by any means. I don't, because you still are up 2-1. You still have another game on your home floor. And so ultimately you want to go into that game, handle your business. You're up 3-1. You're good to go. I think you should go into that game. The Pacers should confident. They know what it takes. They know where they really screwed up tonight. They know to plan for those injured players. Now they may play less minutes. I don't know. Darius Garland looked like he was really struggling out there, and I give him a lot of credit for playing through that great big toe injury, something Myles Turner had himself several years ago, and just said it was unlike any injury he had had before. So much pain and frustration with it. And so Garland, 3 of 11 tonight, but he was out there, knocked down a couple threes, finished with 10 points. And him being out on the floor is an incredible factor there, right? Him being out there is such a significant thing and makes the Pacers have to guard him. It changes the way in which they can run their offense with the Cavs. And so it enables a lot for him to be out there. So I would expect them all to be ready for Sunday, although maybe their minutes will have to be reduced because 2 games in 3 days is tough for guys with injuries. Do I think Nesmith or Nembhard will be on all NBA defensive team? I do not. I thought Nembhard would, except he does not qualify, did not reach the qualifications for that for games played. Otherwise, if I had a vote, I would give him one. I would. The unfortunate thing is nobody in this market has had a vote since I did last in 2019. I had to give up my vote. They wanted to take it back after layoffs at the Athletic. And since then, nobody in this market has had representation. And that's important to me because I don't care if it's me or not, but I think it's important to have every NBA market, all 30 of them, with at least one representation. They have people from TV, from writers. They have individuals overseas. I don't know how much basketball you can watch overseas, but I understand you want some representation. I think it's important among the 100 votes to have at least 30 of them be one individual from each market. And obviously other markets deserve multiple. Your New York, Chicago's, LA's, much bigger markets, so you're going to get more votes. But I do not expect any representation for the Pacers on those. I do think Haliburton will end up on an all-NBA team. I think he'll probably finish on that 3rd team because the way in which the Pacers finished with a top 4 seed, and although he had a rocky season during some parts, he still played at a borderline all-star level. And so I think he is deserving there. Andre says Haliburton wasn't scoring because he was studying the 3-zone defense that was on the court, because that's what a point guard does. He was studying the 3-point. I'm not sure what you're getting at or if that's sarcasm. But we're all in agreement here. You need more from your stars. That starts with Haliburton. That goes to Siakam. I thought Turner played well for about half the game in particular, especially to start the game. And these guys know nobody needs to go to their locker or go to them after practice and put their arm around them and say, hey, we need more from you tonight. They know that. What will be important will be Saturday when they have a film review where they look over that 3-2 defense, where they look over and remind the guys, hey, you got your ass beat here. Guys, why are there 3 Cavs players on the floor for that loose ball? Those reminders, those motivational things, that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to reset how the guys are thinking and maybe their confidence level, both raising it overall individually, but decreasing it for the series and making them feel a little bit of pressure, saying, hey, look, we haven't done anything. We've won 2 games. So what? We give back this game on Sunday. It's a complete reset, and it's a best of 3, and 2 of the 3 will be in Cleveland. I think you're providing a little bit of fire for those guys because you got to remember, not many of them have that playoff experience. They don't. Siakam does. He has a championship. Neesmith's been to the finals with the Celtics, but so many of the other guys do not. A guy like Mathurin, this is his first playoff series. So Saturday will be an important day for guys to get shots up and to review film, walk things around, and talk things over. That will be the biggest thing. What happened to Bill Bano? Mr. Compton, you're full of questions tonight. I like it. I appreciate your involvement. I think the last I heard, he was running a basketball camp somewhere. I forget where it was. He used to run the Treviso camp. Maybe it was the Treviso camp. But I think that was it. But I don't think he's on an NBA bench right now. But seems to be doing well as far as I haven't heard anything negatively with his health or anything like that. So that's cool. Siakam has to give the Pacers more on Sunday. Of course. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. Absolutely. The entire roster does. There's no one on the roster that can be content with tonight's performance, content with their own performance, and know that that's good enough to compete in Game 4. That's the reality. The Pacers wasn't facing the starting 5 the Cavs put on the floor in Game 1. In Game 2, Haliburton was studying it because he had to adjust to it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm lost there with what you're trying to get at. Yes, Hanson Wong's still with the Pacers. But anyway, yeah, just a tough overall night. Unfortunately, just as basketball fans, it was not a good game for us to watch or enjoy. You want a competitive one. You want a back and forth. You want some emotions going back and forth after one team hits a 3 and then another team goes on a run and all the sorts of things. But what have we seen from this Pacers team all season long? They respond when they get beaten, especially they respond after big losses. I've always thought it's better to get blown out than it is to lose by 2, 3, 4, anything like that. And so I think the Pacers will respond coming up on Sunday. We need to see how Haliburton's left wrist is doing. He was not on the injury report. Does that factor into his performance tonight? I don't think so, but these are the questions I have. Got to check on Myles Turner's right ankle area. That clearly bothered him. I think he got it retaped. He was back in the tunnel on the elliptical, but he ultimately was able to play 25 minutes in this one, but it wasn't the 30 minutes like Haliburton. Nobody on the Pacers needed to play big minutes. That was not the case for the Cavs. I was surprised Kenny Atkinson kept all of his key guys in with till about 3 minutes left when they were up by 26. But in doing so, several of their key guys played 37 minutes total. Now, the Pacers did have the big advantage on the bench. That's nice when you win. Doesn't, I don't think, mean as much when you lose. I think it was a difference of like 50-16. Like, it was remarkable. But ultimately, it was a Pacers loss. And for them, that's what matters here is it's 2-1. Best of 7 series. Guys, this one has a long way to go. Game 4 on Sunday at night. Game 5 in Cleveland. That one will also be on TNT. Both of them will be on TNT. I appreciate everyone joining me here tonight. If you missed any part of this, you can rewatch it on YouTube. You can listen to it on the Fieldhouse Files podcast. If you also missed it, today I posted a podcast, an interview, one-on-one conversation with Ryan Ruocco of ESPN, who is the play-by-play announcer for Game 3. Thanks again for everyone for joining me here on this live post-game show, and we'll talk to you again Sunday night. Wishing all the mothers out there happy Mother's Day, and I'll talk to you again soon.